Investigator Griffin?
Yes, sir.
Good morning. My name is Max Schardt. I represent Shannon Stillwell, okay?
Good morning.
Good morning. At some point, I may ask you about the interview, the November 2nd interview with my client.
Okay.
Can I bring up a transcript? I don't want you to read it, but if you need to refer to it, I want you to have it.
I appreciate that.
Thank you. May I approach?
You may.
Investigator Griffin, you spoke to my client 3 times in regards to this incident, correct?
That's correct. I did.
All right. And you viewed him as a victim.
Yes, absolutely he is.
And you still view him as a victim?
I still do.
Okay. And on direct, you said you try to be relatable.
Mm-hmm.
In these interviews that are all recorded, you treated Mr. Stillwell with respect, did you not?
I believe so.
Okay, and I appreciate that. Mr. Stillwell treated you with respect, correct?
Yes, he did.
Okay. You tried to be kind to Mr. Stillwell.
Yes, sir.
I want to talk to you about the facts as you understand them based on your investigation and what Shannon told you in that interview.
Yes, sir.
We're talking about Miss Duncan, Miss Jones, and Shannon Stillwell, who you referred to as Shannon Jackson.
Yes, I apologize if that's not correct.
No, that's fine. That's fine. In a gray SUV, correct?
I think the color is actually green, but
Green? Okay.
it can be mistaken as gray.
Okay. And what make and model is that car?
It was a Mercury Mountaineer. I don't know the year, though.
Okay, that's fine. So they're in a Mercury Mountaineer during this incident.
That's correct.
As you understand it, the lead up to this incident is Mr. Stillwell and Miss Duncan had, at that time, a 10-month-old daughter together, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And as you understand from your investigation, the plan was for Miss Duncan to come pick up Shannon, and Shannon was to go watch the baby at his grandmother's house, correct?
That is correct.
And his grandmother lives, I don't want to give addresses, but the south of Grant Park.
I don't remember, but if you say that's what it is, I don't remember. I'm sorry.
A couple miles from JJ's Fish.
Yes.
Okay. And so Miss Duncan had asked Miss Jones to drive her to pick up Shannon on Lakewood Avenue.
That is correct.
Okay. And Miss Duncan and Miss Jones are friends or knew each other prior to this incident.
That's also correct.
Okay, and your understanding is Mr. Stillwell did not know Miss Jones prior to this incident?
As he explained it to me, he did not know Mrs. Tiara Jones.
Okay. So Miss Duncan and Miss Jones is driving her green SUV.
That's correct.
And they pick up Shannon at Lakewood, and they decide to stop at JJ's Fish. It was JJ's Chicken and Fish?
I think it's JJ's Chicken and Fish.
JJ's Chicken and Fish at the corner of University and Pryor, correct?
That's correct.
All right. So, and at JJ's Chicken and Fish, you learned from Shannon that he saw Bobby Hardy. I think he referred to him as Smoke.
That's correct.
And I just want to correct you. I think you said Jamal Ward. You meant Jamal Baines, correct?
No.
Oh, it was Jamal Ward?
That's correct.
Also Merle?
Yes.
Okay. At that location.
1192 Pryor. That's correct.
And he saw them going in and out of a red Camaro.
I think it was in and out of the Chevron and back and forth to the car and inside the Chevron.
And he took note of their presence, but he had no interactions with them at all.
That is correct. He did not have any interaction with them.
Okay. And you were able to obtain the surveillance video from the parking lot of the JJ's Chicken and Fish.
That's correct.
And the surveillance video corroborated that information.
That's correct.
Okay. So your understanding, Mr. Stillwell goes into the store, orders food, waits for the food that he's going to take back to his grandmother's house.
That is correct.
Okay. And at some point, the red Camaro leaves, takes a left. Working to help me. On the surveillance video, you also observed a black sedan.
That is correct.
Okay, and it is an older model black sedan. And this black sedan on the surveillance video, you tell me, was it interacting with the red Camaro?
Interacting in the sense that people got out and going back and forth, I don't recall. I don't think that's what I saw.
Okay. At some point on the surveillance video, and according to the witness statements, that red Camaro, while Mr. Stillwell, Miss Jones, and Miss Duncan are still at the JJ's, takes a left out of the parking lot and goes south on Pryor, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And maybe 20, 30 minutes after that car left, the car driven by Miss Jones, the SUV, the green SUV, takes a right out of the JJ's parking lot to head north on Pryor.
That is correct.
Okay. And this route that's depicted on this map is, what is this outline? What is that depict exactly?
Yes. I'm not sure if you want me to tell you what people told me, but
Well, is that a route that you drove, or is that your understanding of the route that the SUV driven by Miss Jones drove?
no. So this is not the route of the SUV. This would be the route of the red Camaro.
Okay, all right, okay. Thank you for that clarification. So the circuitous route is not the route that the SUV driven by Miss Jones drove.
That is correct. I can
Okay.
show you if you'd like me to, but that is not the route.
Okay. The bottom line is your understanding the SUV was traveling eventually to Mr. Stillwell's grandmother's house.
If I'm not mistaken, I thought it was going to his house. I think they had a disagreement. I could be wrong, but I thought he was going to go to his apartment after they got the food, which is
Okay.
back on the over near Four Seasons. I think that's what I noted in my police report.
Okay. All right. Do you disagree that, and I don't want to talk about specific addresses, but
Okay.
Mr. Jackson gave you, Mr. Stillwell gave you the number of his grandmother,
He did.
and he told you he lived with his grandmother.
If I think on two different occasions, yes, he told me he lived with his grandmother, but at another time, he told me he was concerned about getting his house shot up and his grandmother. So I'm not sure if that meant because he lived with his grandmother or if it's two different addresses. But I am of that opinion initially, yes.
Okay. So your understanding is this SUV is traveling in the direction, Miss Jones is traveling a route that was being dictated to her by Miss Duncan.
That's correct.
Okay. And in this route, suddenly, a car speeds up behind this SUV that has Mr. Stillwell in the backseat.
That is correct.
Okay. And the engine's revving.
That's correct.
Okay. And there's high definition lights that led Mr. Stillwell to believe that that was the same car he saw in the parking lot of the JJ's.
That's correct.
Okay. And then immediately, well, almost immediately after speeding up behind, gunshots ring out.
That's also correct.
Okay. And there's about 20 shots fired at the green SUV that Ms. Jones, Ms. Duncan, and Mr. Stillwell are in from this car that's speeding up behind them.
That is also correct.
That green SUV is hit in the rear. What did you say, the rear liftgate?
Like the rear lift gate. That's correct.
Okay, and also the back windshield was shattered, correct?
That is correct.
And according to Mr. Stillwell, upon being hit, the car starts to roll and flip multiple times.
That's correct.
And of course, sadly, you know through your investigation that the driver of the SUV, Miss Jones, was hit in the face with one of the bullets fired from the car that was speeding up behind him.
That's also correct.
Okay. And she lost control of the car.
She did.
Mr. Stillwell told you when the car finally stopped flipping over multiple times, he couldn't breathe, and Ms. Duncan had her injuries, and sadly, Ms. Jones was deceased.
That's correct.
Okay. The defects that you observed, you took note of the defects in the car,
I did.
and they were all in the rear.
The ones that I took note of, they were all in the rear.
Okay. And that is consistent with the information that Mr. Stillwell gave you.
Yes, it was.
Okay. You collected shell casings.
I think approximately 12.
12 shell casings, and they were all from what kind of gun?
The caliber was a 7.62 caliber.
Okay. And the gun that you found on the scene is not the type of gun that would shoot 7.62 caliber ammunition.
That is correct.
Okay, and there was no other shell casings found on the scene from any other guns.
No other shell casing, just the ones that I mentioned.
There is absolutely no evidence at all that any shots were fired from that green SUV, is there?
No evidence at all.
Okay. And you, in fact, not only collected video from the JJ's parking lot, but you also drove the route and looked for, were they city-owned video cameras on the street?
I found out they were owned by the city. That is correct.
Okay, how many different cameras did you find on this?
I'm not certain of the exact number. I might have mentioned it in my police report, but I did take note at that intersection. There was what I thought were security cameras or traffic cameras at that intersection of Milton and Hank Aaron.
Okay, and there's also a traffic light at Milton and Hank Aaron, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And so, why did you spend your time looking for these surveillance cameras?
Well, again, there was not a lot of people that were willing to tell me what happened or even saw it, so I have to rely on cameras or, of course, the testimony of the witnesses.
Did you view that as an important part of your investigation?
Absolutely.
Did you want to make sure you collected all video in a timely manner?
Absolutely.
All right, great. Okay, the injuries sustained by the three victims in that green SUV. Miss Duncan, who was in the passenger seat, suffered a fractured leg, correct?
That is correct.
And that was, to be clear, that was from the car accident, the car flipping multiple times, not from gunshots.
That is my understanding. It's from the accident.
Okay. My client, Mr. Stillwell, suffered fractured ribs.
Yes, he did.
Collapsed lung. And when you went to go see him, he had back injuries. The hospital had to actually insert a tube into his back, correct?
Well, I didn't know the last part, but I thank you for telling me that. I knew about the first two injuries.
And those were all from the car flipping over after Miss Jones was shot and lost control of the vehicle.
That is my understanding.
Okay, and then, of course, Miss Jones sadly lost her life.
Yes, sir.
And that was due to a gunshot to her face.
Mm-hmm.
Shot from behind by that vehicle that was speeding up behind the green SUV.
That's correct.
Okay. I think we established that Shannon, prior to this day, did not know Tierra Jones.
That is also correct.
It is true that in this interview, Shannon repeatedly expressed remorse for what happened to Tierra.
Yes, he did.
He never suggested that what happened was okay in any way, shape, or form.
No, he didn't, which is, again, I think that contributes to the reason why he was willing to speak with me.
And in fact, he requested to write a letter of remorse to Tierra Jones's family.
That is also correct.
And he did so.
He did.
You discussed a series of incidents that had occurred to Shannon in 2015 in this interview, correct?
One in particular, I'm not sure if there was several, but one in particular.
One and then this one.
That is correct.
Okay, so you discussed, he brought it up to you that someone had shot at him at the Green store,
Yes, he did.
and a bullet grazed his forehead.
Mhm.
Okay. And then he in fact told you that people came up to him in a club and said, "You're lucky the gun jammed. Next time it's your ass," correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And then, of course, there was this incident.
That's correct.
At the time of this incident, you discussed what was going on with Mr. Stillwell. Mr. Stillwell denied any involvement in the murder of Donovan Thomas, correct?
I don't think I specifically asked him that question. That wouldn't have been the focus of my interview. I think another detective might have asked him that, but I didn't specifically ask him that. That's not something that I was interested in knowing.
Well, at the time of this shooting, you did ask, when you were with the gang investigators, the name Kenneth Copeland or Woody came up, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And the truth is that at the time of this shooting of Tierra Jones, Woody was in custody. He was in federal custody, correct? Well, you might not know where he was, but he was in custody.
That's correct. I did find out later where he was. That is correct.
Okay. And you spoke with Mr. Stillwell about the ongoing beef between Kenneth Copeland, Woody, and Shell Kell.
Yes, I did.
Mr. Stillwell referred to that beef as generational beef between those two individuals, correct?
He did. He did.
He described the situation as they shoot at Woody and his people, Woody shoots back, correct?
That's correct.
And Mr. Stillwell was concerned because he felt that people perceived him as Woody's friend.
Yes, that is correct.
And that people were now shooting at him because Woody was in custody and they could not get Woody, correct?
I think I can infer that. I'm not sure if he specifically said that, but I was of the same impression.
Okay. Thank you. I have no further questions.